Hello, welcome to the Opinionistics. I'm your host, John Malone. In this episode, no co-host, because reasons, as always. Introducing from Seattle, Washington, Wes Al-Dahar. Hello?
Hello.
Yes. Hello, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Welcome. So, Wes, what is it that you do for a living?
Well, what I am is the director of Tales of Khayr and the publisher of the Brotherhood of the Wolf comic book series. And so it's a dark fantasy comic book series set in the 15th century Ottoman Empire. So um, you can think of it like Game of Thrones, but set in the 15th century Ottoman Empire and um, uh, just a lot of fantastic, a lot of fantasy elements and horror elements happening, which makes the story more interesting.
Alright then, pretty cool. And what inspired you to go along on the path that you are on right now?
Well, I'm a bit of a world wanderer, and so I've always been in the process of soaking in like diverse cultures and histories. So, like growing up, every 7 years we'd move to a new location. It wasn't planned; it's just something that we did. So, like, from the American Pacific Northwest to Saudi Arabia, and then vacationing to Jordan, Syria, Turkey, Palestine, back to the U.S., different parts of the U.S. Now and then Spain as one of the examples. And so, being kind of a global nomad, uh, and just saying like, wow, there's a lot in the world that I see that's not necessarily on the present on the American television that I watch. And so one thing that really struck me was when I was in the country of Jordan, we visited a castle built by Saladin, who built the castle to fight against the Crusaders, particularly I think the Knights Hospitaller. And I was, you know, being given the tour in the castle and looking at like where they have the arrow slits where they shoot the arrows and where the parts where they like pour the hot oil down on the enemy that would come through. I was looking through all of this castle and I was like, wow, where's the movie for this? Because we don't really see any of this stuff in an American or English speaking TV. And so that kind of catalyzed me wanting to see like, hey, I'm a huge fan of uh, you know Disney, manga, etc. So I'm like, okay, well, let me try my hand at creating something excellent like fantasy, but set in a world and a setting that people have never seen before. So that's what set me off this on this journey.
Fantastic. So, if you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be?
Oh, that's a good question. If I could live anywhere in the world, where would it be? Uh, Probably, I'm from Palestine, and so I wish I could live there if the geopolitical situation was a bit more stable. Um, yeah, I just would love to live there and really for the reasons I described. There's so much going on, so much that you could do and see that yeah, that's where I'd want to be, and it's got a lot of sun too.
Yes, that's very true. If your life was a meal, what kind of meal would it be?
I would never say no to a good hamburger. It's delicious, simple, and full of protein. So I'd be a nice double patty burger is what I would be, or what my life would be.
Alright then, very delicious. Where was the furthest you traveled to from where you were originally from?
I honeymooned in Bali. So Bali is like is an island in the country of Indonesia, and it's like, yeah, that's probably where the furthest that I've ever been to. And just to give people an idea of how far it is, you don't really see American tourists in Bali. The Western tourists that you see there are Australia, because it's relatively close to Australia, so that's how far it is.
Yeah, I could say that. I've heard a lot about Bali, especially at
Hmm.
this time of year.
Yep.
Would you sleep on the wall or sleep on the ceiling?
Well, sleeping on the wall probably needs to give me some sort of Spider-Man powers of sticking to the wall, and even then, it doesn't seem very comfortable. So I'd prefer to sleep on the ceiling. At least I'd get some fresh air out of it.
Yes, that's a good point. And also the floor space too.
Yep.
Have you ever imagined a massive have you ever imagined this whole world is a big, massive garden?
You know, I think the world is a massive garden if you think about it. I mean, yeah, I mean, there's deserts and things like that, but generally, um, isn't that what it is? So
Yes,
yeah, I think you
that's
could say
true.
that.
Yeah, absolutely. If you could erase one past experience, what would it be?
Oh, just one? Uh, well, if I could erase one, you know what? How about this? So when I was in seventh grade, I thought I was, top stuff, and one time, I wore a suit, uh, while going to school in the seventh grade, and everyone is complimenting me on the suit, etc., including a girl I had a crush on at the time. And then I don't know what I said, but I said something along the lines of like, "Hey, I'm the most handsome boy in the world," because that's what my parents always told me. Right now, when they told me that while I was growing up, they were just being nice, but I actually believed it. That's the extent of my narcissism. And so I literally was like, yeah, told this girl that I had a crush on, yeah, like, yeah, I'm the most handsome boy in the world. And she looked at me and she's like, no, no, you're not. And I'm like, what? And then she's like, no, you're not. You're not the most handsome boy in the world. What are you talking about? And so that shattered me. Like I think a full day and a half, I was just like had PTSD from hearing this news that I was indeed not the most handsome boy in the world, and I still carry those scars to this day.
Dang, that's wild.
Yeah.
If someone wrote a book about you, what do you think its title would be?
The most handsome boy in the world.
Yeah. What would you do if you found out you won the lottery?
Well, the lottery is a form of gambling, and I have moral hang-ups about gambling. But assuming that there's nothing morally wrong with the lottery, if we just, you know, theoretically, I'd invest the money and then use the rest to buy a nice house because I don't know about where you guys are at, but here in the United States, housing prices are ridiculous. So that's what I would do.
Fair enough, fair enough. Prices is also crazy where I am.
Hmm.
It's absolutely mental. What kind of music do you often listen to?
Oh man, it's a mix. I'm interested in different things, like uh, pop, new metal, uh, even EDM. So there isn't really anything specific. It's just like a mix of different things. Just whatever has a lot of energy and gets them toes tapping.
Yes, indeed. Would you consider yourself to be an extrovert or an introvert?
Ah, that's a good question. I'd say an introvert. Yeah, yeah. And for me, if I had the choice between hanging around a lot of people and talking, or for example, sitting down and creating a comic book, I'd prefer to do the latter. But the nice thing about creating a comic book is it's a team effort, right? So I create the stories and I publish them, but I have an artist who does the penciling and inking. I work with colorists who obviously color, letterer who does the lettering, and not to mention the editor. So, even in the stuff that I like to do, quote unquote, on my own, it's still a team effort. So I don't know. It's weird, but I would say I lean more towards introvert.
Fair enough, fair enough. If you were given 500 acres of land, what would you use that land for?
500 acres of land. Well, I don't know what I would do with 500 acres of land for my own. uh, probably donate it to a cause that I think is worthy. Um, uh, because even if I wanted to have livestock and whatever, like even just like a few acres of land is just too much. So yeah, probably just either give it away or rent it out to people who know what to do with 500 acres of land.
Yeah, that could be a good move. What should they teach in high school but they don't?
You know what they need to do in high school is they need to teach financial literacy. Like you don't like in high school you learn a bunch of different things like civics and history and you know arithmetic, etc. And these things are fine. But one of the things that people aren't really prepared for coming out of high school is financial literacy. Like, how do you make money? How do you keep the money that you make and track it? All of this stuff, people have no idea how to do coming out of high school, but they know the most esoteric things, like, the capital of Uzbekistan. And it's like, who cares? But do you know how to manage your finances? And so that's what I would teach is that financial literacy, how to deal with money.
Yes, especially in this economy, it's absolutely that.
Yeah, yeah. And one of the things I noticed is like I grew up. I'm old enough to like be used to dealing with cash. Uh, uh, Even though I use card like a lot of other people, but there's some younger people out there who don't really know how to even deal with cash, right? Like, and not necessarily even credit cards. I think a lot of times they just use apps and on their phone. Um, so it's yeah, so it's just like, if you're to look at different coins, in whatever currency that you live in, do you know the difference between a penny and a dime and a quarter? Stuff as basic as that. Surprisingly, people like there are some people who don't know how to deal with that.
That is certainly true. What is your favorite type of day?
The type of day that I have is one that is productive, one where I'm able to organize my day where I can focus on work, uh, focus on health, and focus on family without necessarily sacrificing any one of those three buckets. So if I'm able to do all three in a single day, then I think that's a good day.
Great. If you could control any of the four elements, earth, water, air, and fire, which would you choose?
I'd choose air so that I could use it to fly.
Yeah, that's a good choice.
Yeah, yeah. Fire, knowing myself, I'd burn myself by accident. Uh, Water, it's interesting, but it's like, there's only so much I can do. But look, with air, like, there's a lot I could do with air, like flying. So that's what I'd do.
Yes. Couldn't agree more. Would you rather never age physically or never age mentally?
Well, I already have the mental maturity of a 5-year-old, so I'd probably choose don't age physically.
Fair enough. What do you greatly enjoy doing but wish you could do more of?
Honestly speaking, with the Brotherhood of the Wolf, you know, it's a, a comic book that nobody's really seen before. And so writing and creating stories in that world is immensely satisfying. However, in order to get the book in people's hands, or different books in the series in people's hands, it's not enough just to create the book. I kind of have to like spread the word about it, and so I have to spend a lot of time like marketing and uh, talking to people about it, et cetera, which I enjoy doing, but that takes time away from creating more stories, creating more books. So I just wish I could just focus more time on creating more books and less time on having to do the marketing stuff. But there's no way around it, unfortunately.
Yeah, absolutely. Has to be done. Would you be transported 500 years into the future or 500 years into the past?
Well, in I follow the point of view that like as time progresses, generally things get worse. So things might get better from a technological perspective, but from a moral or societal perspective, things seem to be getting worse as time passes. So if I had to choose between the two, I'd rather go back in time because 500. If I were to go 500 years in time, who knows? We might be dealing with like the Antichrist, Gog and Magog, robots taking over the world. So I'm like, well, I'd rather go back if I had to choose. But
All right.
there's a in Islamic mysticism, like called Sufism. There's a saying that a Sufi is a man of his time. So a Sufi is a man of the present, essentially saying like you've been put in the time that you're in. So it's better just to maximize uh, where you're at because you can't control being in the future or in the past, and just turn your present into a metaphorical garden. And so that's something to keep in mind for me.
Oh yes, yes. If you had to lose one of your senses, which would you choose to lose?
Ah, that's horrible. Well, all the senses add something. If I had to lose one, I'd guess sense of smell. But even then, that would suck because I'm no scientist, but I think your sense of smell is closely connected to taste. So if I lose the smell, would we lose taste? I'm not sure, but I guess that's what I would pick if I was forced to. It's horrible.
Okay. Yeah, of course. What is your favorite life hack?
Favorite like you know what? This sounds really cheesy, but coffee. My goodness. Like just having caffeine in the before the PM, so have it in the AM. I feel like it does a lot for one's energy levels, but you have to be careful because caffeine can mask uh, bad sleep practices. So assuming your sleep is dialed in, I feel like caffeine is one of the great life hacks of life.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, sorry if maybe you were maybe hoping to hear something more sexy like cold shower routine and meditation practices that make me levitate. Those I haven't figured those out yet. So caffeine
No,
is
no,
my
I'm not too worried about that. It is what it is, and yeah, we all have our own life choices. What is your favorite season?
oh well you have to realize where I'm at in the Pacific Northwest. Um, it's gray and gloomy for 8 months, um, or maybe even 10 months, frankly, and we get some sun. 2 months out of the year. So so because of that, I'm a big fan of summer. I must admit. Now, assuming that I was in a location where we got all four seasons, I would say my favorite would be spring. So it's location dependent. I'm assuming, and maybe in Britain, it's similar to how we have it here in the Pacific Northwest, where it's gray and gloomy for most of the year. So you might know what I'm talking about, but yeah.
Yes, I definitely know what you're talking about, and it's pretty much the same vibe.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, pro tip, since we were wanting to talk about life hacks. So if you're like in you know, a part of the in a part of the world where that doesn't get much sun, like Pacific Northwest or United Kingdom or anything like that, vitamin D is your best friend. Like, make sure you take like enough and get tested to see your vitamin D levels because it's more likely than not that you're probably low, and low vitamin D levels result in low energy levels, bad mood, weakened bones, a lot of things. Because vitamin D is like the only vitamin that's also a hormone. So super important to make sure that you have that at sufficient levels. Anyway, that's my health tip of the day.
Fantastic. When you're going on a road trip, what two items do you make sure to bring with you?
Uh, when I'm going on a road trip, you want to have a way to power your devices, so like your iPhone, for example. Um, and also, I think food. You don't want to just rely on uh, whatever convenience store you see on the way. You might not see any convenience stores. So yeah, those are the two things I would probably bring.
Yes, yes. Have you met anyone famous?
Have I met anyone famous? I have, but they're not like they're famous in the niches that they're in, but not necessarily famous like Tom Cruise that a mass audience would know about. Um, so that's what I would say. Like yes, but conditionally.
Yes, there's always something. Would you rather be able to breathe underwater or have an agility of a cat?
Yeah, I'd rather have the agility of a cat. Like I don't see how often I would need to be underwater to breathe under it. Who knows? But like if I had to pick between the two right now, I'd pick the agility of the cat. Until I pull my hip, and then I guess that would be over that fantasy. And so I just wheel my chair over to the ocean, looking at it, saying, "Man, I wish I picked a different power."
Oh, yes. There's always gonna be somewhere. What bad habits do you want to get rid of?
Uh, I get angry quickly. I get angry really quickly. And so just for me, just like no, give myself a pause where I uh, I don't get angry because it's just not worth it. And uh, getting angry or at least acting on anger more often than usual gets makes things worse and not better. Especially if the anger is ego based, right? So if you're getting angry over because you see something that's wrong that needs to be made right, that's different than well, how dare he make fun of my butterfly collection? I'll show him. That type of anger is usually not not helpful.
Yeah,
But no,
fair enough.
seriously, leave my butterfly collection alone. That's what I
Yeah,
find.
yeah, absolutely. They're very precious. How much time do you spend on the internet?
Well, I think a fair amount. I don't have the exact number, but if I can answer for with confidence to say a bit too much. I think for me it's just like uh, internet's kind of a black hole. So even when I'm like doing something for work and researching something, I like you find one thing and you're like, ooh, well, how about this? And then that leads to something else like, ooh, how about this? And it's like, oh God, like did I just really spend 2 hours deep diving into butterfly collections? And will I ever get those 2 hours back? Probably not.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. That's a good point. If you had a song for every time you entered the room, what song would that be?
Let the bodies hit the floor.
Nice. If you could get an exotic pet, what kind of companion would that be?
Well, I would need to ensure that it doesn't eat me, but I always wanted a pet tiger, and I wish I could name it like something appropriate, like Mittens or Mr. Kibbles or Whiskers.
All right then. Would you rather speak all languages or talk to animals?
I'd rather speak to all languages because I don't want to. Because if I'm able to talk to animals, then I'd. It sounds cool at first, but if you think about it, probably not too much because I'd have to like hear squirrels complaining about their nuts, and they're just some things that I don't really want to hear about. TMI.
Yeah, like how you connect with that.
Yeah, yeah. Like how do I connect with a squirrel and his nuts? And I'd rather not do that. That stuff's personal in my view.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
Do you enjoy spicy food?
Only to a limit. Like, and whenever my wife and I we go to Indian restaurants, we always have to tell them zero, like zero level of spice, because when we say zero, we for them like you know uh what they consider zero, like I think normal people would consider like a two. So yeah, a little bit of the spice to give the food a bit of a kick, but not so much where I'm like snot is running down my face and I'm coughing and hacking and drinking glass of water after glass of water, regretting my life decisions.
Indeed.
Yes.
If you could create your own job title, what would it be?
Let's see. What would it be? Uh, well, actually, I think I did give myself I do have my own. Actually, I think I've done that. I think I've done that. And so if one were to go to my blog, one would see one of the titles that I have is Commander of the Halaltainment Jihad. So that's 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 a title that, like, and when I say like Halaltainment Jihad, obviously it's a mix of two words, halal, which in the Islamic perspective means permissible, as opposed to a lot of the entertainment out there that's like just really gross and dirty and uh, uh, problematic. And then jihad just means struggle. But I know that word triggers people because of reasons. So yeah, that's what my title would be: Commander of the Halal Tainment Jihad.
Okay, interesting.
Yep.
If you could see one movie again for the first time, what movie would that be?
It would be Dredd. Dredd's the 2012 version of Judge Dredd, starring Carl Urban. I can watch that movie. Like, I pretty much watch that movie every year, and my wife is like, "Please, can you not do that? Can you please? Can we watch? You've watched this movie a million times." I'm like, "No, no, this is every year. I must watch this movie, because it is that good."
Yeah, I could say
Yep.
that. If you had to get rid of a holiday, which would you get rid of?
Uh, let's see here. If I had to get rid of a holiday, what would it be? Man, that's a good question. I think Valentine's, because I don't know. It's just like, really, what's the point of this holiday? Like, do people need an excuse to uh, be romantic? There's already Tinder for all those degenerates out there. So what's the point of Valentine's, really? That's me saying this as a grumpy old man in a young man's body.
Yes, absolutely. And that is all we have for this episode. It's great having you on, Wes, talking about all sorts of things relating to comics, fantasy, and so much more. It's been great.
Yeah, no, well, thank you for having me. And for people who would like to get on the announcement list for the Brotherhood of the Wolf, you can go to talesofkhair.com. So that's TALESOFKHAYR.com. And if you sign up to the announcement list, you'll get notifications about uh, books, merch, videos, and you get also my free newsletter. So check that out.
Alright, sounds good. And until next time, stay opinionated.